Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. It's Danny Coulombe signing with the Twins. And boy, if you're not excited, I understand. But we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about a whole lot more. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, howdy, hi. It's Brandon Warren, and it's Locked On Twins. You can unfollow me on the tweets at Brandon_WARNE. Thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen. Every day we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And I am joined, as always, by Mr. Dave Brown, the BBWA member for the last 13 years, a Hall of Fame voter 2 times over, and the co-host. What's up?
Hi, Brandon. I'm excited about the Twins making a move, even though it was 7 minutes after we left our recent podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't do anything, complaining.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about that today. Danny Coulombe signing with the Twins, coming back to the Twins. A couple of outfielders that we thought might be of interest to the Twins signed elsewhere, and also an umpire fired for reasons that are very interesting, and some information on the Yankees fan that was banned for life from the stadium. I believe for life. We'll talk about that, though. Information on him coming out, too. Super Bowl 59 is here, by the way, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Dave, Danny Coulombe signed. I guess, like, they knew about it, or people knew that he was possibly signing for a few days because there was pre-written articles at a few different spots and all that. But certainly interesting to see that drops as I'm uploading our episode from Tuesday. Not the Keith Law one, which I recommend going back and listening to, but we covered a few questions that fans had asked, and all of a sudden now there's an actual move to talk about. So Danny Coulombe, lefty reliever. We had kind of thought that this bullpen was full-ish, and now I think it's certainly full. Where do you stand on Danny Coulombe as being the first big / any major league free agent the Twins signed, and what role he's going to fill on this team?
Well, I think there was a lack of comfort. Rocco had a lack of comfort. Maybe Mackey had a lack of comfort in not having any lefties in the bullpen with any letters, so to speak. Brent Hendrick's out there. Cody Funderburk is out there, but I don't know that we can trust either of those guys to make the team. This is a guy who's had a couple of really good years since he left the Twins. I am a little concerned about, he is coming off bone chips in his elbow. I don't know that he was overused, let's just say, in Baltimore from a volume standpoint, but they used him a couple times on back-to-back days. And I know that his last game of the year, not last game of the year, but before he had his time off and surgery and before he came back late in the season, was like a 2-inning effort. And I just remember the talk from the Orioles fans and media at the time, like, well, they kind of squeezed all the blood out of that stone. And the Orioles, as you remember, were having lots of trouble last year. And Coulombe was a guy who could get people out late in innings. And he's not just a situational lefty, which is, what you need anymore. I like the signing. I just, worry about his health, and he's getting older. And so I'm pro Danny. I guess it's what they needed. But I would just say, I worry about pitchers and their injuries, and that's all. I mean, but you could say that about any pitcher.
If they were going to sign a lefty, though, based on dollars and capability, this is probably where I would have gone to. I mean, AJ Minter's a good left-handed reliever, but for the money involved, or Tanner Scott for that matter. Again, not that I don't want Tanner Scott on my baseball team, but I'm not really comfortable spending that much on a guy who at best will throw 75, 80 innings. So,
Nor can we really expect the Twins to put the resources right. I didn't really expect them to put the resources into Danny Coulombe. So there's that as well. I thought it still would be a while until they added anybody else. But I guess
Right.
I'm glad they did. So.
Well, and what I like about Coulombe, I mean, the raw numbers are good, but last year he faced 107 batters, 67 righties, 40 lefties, a 484 OPS against for righties, 400 for lefties. He allowed 7 hits, 2 of them were doubles, no other extra base hits, no walks, 10 strikeouts. So he's not just, though, a lefty neutralizer. He also is good against righties. Now, again, that's not the most massive of sample sizes. And he did pitch in 33 games, 29 and 2/3 innings. So even though we have, the 3-batter rule or finish the inning rule, all that stuff, you can still massage that by having a guy like Danny Coulombe come in with 2 outs and a lefty do up, or 2, 1 out and a lefty and another lefty coming up. Like it's not skirting the rules, but it is a way to use lefties against lefties. That's a little less, traditional lefty specialist kind of role. So I think that the Orioles used him in a way this last year that was interesting, something maybe to watch. The year before, he had 61 appearances and 51 in the 3rd innings. So more the up, down, pitching, not pitching, pitching, not pitching than it was actual like bulk of innings. If you go through 90 innings, you're going to be like, whoa, that's a lot of innings for a middle reliever. You're going to say 50 innings. That's not that much. Well, if you pitch frequently, that helps pitchers too.
Do you have any memories of him in particular when he was? This is the second time he's been with the Twins.
Yeah.
What do you remember about those 1922 season? Or
Nothing that obvious. I mean, he threw, just a hair under 50 innings, and they were solid, unremarkable. But what I see when I watch him pitch is I see deception from the left side. For me, it looks as though it's really hard to pick up. And I don't know if it's because of if his release and his glove are, kind of like obscuring each other.
All right.
But I when I watch Coulombe, for a guy who doesn't throw gas and is like, I don't think of him as having like one nasty wipeout pitch. Like, if we look at pitch values, he's plus 1.9 on the fastball, 2.6 on a cutter, 2.1 on the sinker, 3.4 on a slider, 0.3 on the knuckle curve on Fangraphs. So they're all pluses, but like his sinker the year before was his big pitch, and he's he mixes and matches. He can be a ground ball guy too, but I just see an uncomfortable at bat for especially lefties, because you're trying to read the ball out of his hand and you're already at a disadvantage. But even for righties, I think there's some way with his motion that he obscures the ball, and his effective velocity is higher than the 90. Like, so he's 90, 91. He's been as high as 91.8. That was with the Twins, but it was only 12 innings back in 2022 before he was flipped. So I think that velocity can play up a little bit the way he obscures the ball, but I'm not an expert in like those sorts of things. I'm just speaking from as someone who's batted before against decent pitching. If I can't see the ball out of a guy's hand, velocity doesn't mean as much, because it's gonna be an effective velocity that's much higher. Kind of like a Bailey Ober fastball, where how close he is to the plate when he releases it. It's
right.
Again, it's going to get on you faster than you expect.
If you look at his past 81 innings, 2 seasons with the Orioles, strikeout to walk ratio, 28.4% strikeout rate, 5.4 walk rating. That's a really good interval. 2.2% home run. I wouldn't say he's vulnerable to home runs, but every once in a while, maybe. Only a 16.3% line drive rate. So we're talking about a guy and he gives up more grounders than fly balls by a significant portion, almost double the amount of grounders compared to fly balls. And he checks a lot of boxes in that way. the two, I wouldn't call them objections, but the two caveats, he did end the season pitching. He got good results at the end when he came back for a few games with the Orioles.
Yeah.
So that's good. I worry about elbow issues. He's never pitched more than 51 innings in the majors. And we'll talk a little bit more maybe about this in the next segment, but depending on exactly where the Twins are with allocation resources, is this the best way to spend money? I mean, adding to a bullpen that is already one of the strengths of the team, especially at the end of it. But he's a high leverage left-handed guy. He's not Tanner Scott quite, but he's not that far away from Tanner Scott either, at least in terms of quality. So it certainly makes a strong part of the team better. Now, there are other things, other departments on the Twins roster that I think everybody thought maybe they could use addressing, and hopefully this won't usurp those possibilities.
Yeah, he's certainly not 10 or whatever $1 million per year less effective than Tanner Scott. And based on the Twins' resource allocation or what's being directed from up top, this is just kind of the way it had to be. There's a sneaky reason too why I think this is a really good move, but I think what we'll do is we'll head on to break. When we come back, I'm going to touch on one last thing here, and then we're going to dive into Randall Grichuk and Ramon Laureano signing elsewhere, what that means for the Twins, what that means for those players. And we'll also talk about Pat Hoberg, an umpire who was fired, loses his appeal, what that means, because it's certainly an interesting case. But again, first, a word. So Super Bowl 59 is here. It's one game, two teams, and endless possibilities. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or right on down to betting on the coin flip, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. The whipped cream on your latte. It's perfect. It's the best. It's the best thing going today. You got to check it out. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5. And if you win, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, so Dave, one thing that I really enjoy about this Coulombe signing is that in this division, when I think about left-handed hitters, like this is not the AL Central of old where you had to contend with like Jim Thome, whether he was with Cleveland or the White Sox. Now, Josh Naylor, out of the division. When I think of this division, I think of more right-handed hitters. Bobby Witt Jr. Kerry Carpenter's a good hitter on the Tigers, but they platoon him against lefties. So in this division, you're either going to face righties or you're going to face lefties who will possibly / probably be lifted for a pinch hitter. So Kyle Manzardo for whoever, Kerry Carpenter for whoever. Now, when that happens, you have already countered that move with Coulombe, who can also get righties out. So that's what I like about this move is everybody talks about you got to have a lefty, you got to have a lefty, you got to have a lefty. Well, that's only answering half the question. So if you have a lefty and you force the other team to make a move because their lefty is up, I think that's a really good chess move. It's like a bing, bang, boom with your queen, and suddenly it's checkmate.
I like when you say big, bang, boom. Yeah, well, among the things that people didn't like about the Twins season last year, maybe this is down the list, but when Caleb Thielbar would come into the game, it would
just
be
in
like,
general. Just in general.
Thielbar. Kind of true. But
yeah,
it's like, is he going to have to face righties? And very often it did not end well. So, I mean, that's the thing about the modern game with the limitations on, the one out lefty has gone the way of the dodo. It doesn't exist anymore. Can you trust your left-handed guy to not have an incident against right-handed people. And I mean, does it become not only an unfavorable matchup, but one that you're going to get killed by? And not only Danny Coulombe is a guy that can get the righties out. You don't have to be afraid. Rocco, don't be afraid. It's going to make Rocco feel better having this guy out there to have a lefty out there when he has leverage, and to not feel like you're on the other side of it when they replace a bunch of lefties with right-handed hitters. Another good lefty-handed hitter in the division, I'd hate to not mention Riley Green, but that's a guy probably to stay out there for, that's who you're getting Danny Coulombe for, but him. But, if somebody else comes up, Mark Hanna, I don't know, maybe he'll be on the Twins.
Yeah.
Comes up, you don't have to worry about it so much.
Yeah, I really do like Riley Green, so that's a miss by me. But Thielbar versus righties last year, 286, 365, 480. That's like if you got Michael Kadyr's 99th percentile outcome back in the day. Lefties, 240, 320, 333. So he allowed 6 homers, 5 of them to righties, and that's kind of what his undoing was. And better in the second half.
Thielbar's not going to be like Michael Kadyr, where he can pull a rabbit out of his hat. So that's
right.
not going to happen.
1.46 whip in the second half. That's just not going to work if you're pitching in any sort of pressure situations. And that's a downgrade from home and away. 1.46 away, 1.67 at home. I had the splits here. 1.75 in the first half, 1.40 in the second half, 5.64 ERA in the first half, 5.04 in the second. So it wasn't as though like there's some isolated spot where you're like, oh man, he kind of figured something out here. Like at the end, he was okay, and he kind of like seemed to be coming into, better places as far as like how he was pitching, but still not enough where you're like, he's gonna find it. You may as well just go with Coulombe if the money is similar. And I don't remember the Thielbar money. Do you happen to remember that? It's got to be right around this.
I have absolutely no recollection of Caleb Thielbar's salary.
Well, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. Yeah, do that.
Kind of.
Well, and speaking of salaries, Randall Grichuk signed with the Diamondbacks 1 year, $5 million. And I had a friend reach out via DM and say, wow, I think it's a miss that the Twins didn't get Grichuk at $5 million. And that's only half the story, because there's a mutual option for $5 million and a buyout for $3 million. So, and this is something that John Becker of Fangraphs brought up that is a good point that I may not have pieced together myself. It's not like it's difficult, high-end thought, but that speaks more about me, is that mutual options are very rarely exercised. And so this is like whatever the opposite of a signing bonus is, like a go-away bonus. If they don't both exercise their sides of the mutual option, he gets $3 million. So in essence, they've guaranteed him $8 million. That's a much bigger chunk of change, maybe not on the MLB wide landscape, but in Twins land, where the difference is that $5 million to $8 million, that difference is Danny Coulombe. I would rather have Ramon Laureano, hypothetically, plus Danny Coulombe, or Harrison Bader plus Danny Coulombe, as opposed to just Randall Grichuk, if I had my choice.
Yeah, I feel, though, like we're getting into – we still come back to, what the poll ads are kind of allowing as far as salary goes. And I don't want to compare them to nickels and dimes, but it's just not a lot of money anymore for a baseball player. It's not.
It's really not. No, it's not. Like, if you think
this isn't 2010, the inflation has happened.
This is why the Jack Flaherty deal is so absurd. Like, that's a miss by a lot of teams. 2 years, $35 million. Like, that's nothing.
He is getting 25 this year. And then next year is kind of up in the air a little bit with how.
Okay. So I misread that then. Okay, I didn't realize it was not. Okay, so that's okay. That's a good number.
I mean, I think you're half right. Or you're halfway to something there. It's a lot of money for this year, but it's still a 1 year deal. And
Noah Syndergaard got 1 in 23 2 years ago from the Angels, and he was not nearly where Flaherty is right now. I mean, Flaherty
not in his career, no.
Yeah, no. Syndergaard at that point was, we don't have any idea what he's going to do. And let me tell you, he hasn't done anything since, with the Angels. And then I think they flipped him to the Guardians for a little bit. He's just, and I think I saw him throwing the other day. I don't know if he's trying to get a minor league deal or what, but the $8 million for Grichuk,
clearly at the end of the road. He might have a little bit left. Flaherty, it's not so clear cut. I mean, he's got health issues, back problems that could it end at any time for Jack Flaherty? And I think that's part of the issue with him not getting a long-term contract. Yes. But is that different than any other pitcher? Not really.
No.
So it takes a little bit of the certainty away, and that's why he's not getting a long-term deal. Back to Grichuk for a second. He would have fit nice. He would have fit nicely in the Twins outfield. Not historically terrible against right-handed batters. Just this past year, just amazing against lefties. The Diamondbacks did a great job of spotting him, and they have Jock Peterson and lots of other people out there as far as the depth goes and pieces. And the Twins, I mean, he would have been a nice piece, a right-handed bat to have, and not terrible historically against right-handed pitching. Grichuk is capable of throwing some stinkers out there. He's not from season to season always that consistent. He had a bunch of years there at the end with St. Louis and some with the Angels where he'd be below average overall, and you wouldn't want to pay him $1 million to play. You'd want that spot to go to somebody else. So it is, there is a downside to Grichuk, and he would have fit in nicely though with what the Twins like. He would have fit in really nicely last year. I thought. I mean, he would have been a lot better than Margot. I wonder if they make the playoffs if they have Randall Grichuk instead of Manuel Margot. That it came down. I mean, it came down to just the last week of the season. That might have changed things, but not to dwell too much on that. However, I still think there are better fish in the sea than that. I don't think it's it's a prohibitive amount of money for Grichuk, but I also think, and maybe it would have to be a trade at this point. I don't know that there's a free agent that's as good as him, but I think that you could do better than him, and the Twins could, with the resources they have, get a better player than Grichuk. So it's not the end, but he would have been nice to have just for the money.
Well, if they can't get a better player, they could get a Bader player. Harrison Bader. I've been waiting on that one. Would be an option. Laureano signed 1 year, $4 million with Baltimore, club option for 6.5. So a little bit of a different spin on what 2026 might look like, but 350 batting average on balls in play and drastically different splits after he's switched over to the Braves. So he played well with the Braves, but I don't know. If he's not a center fielder anymore and he doesn't hit, that's an easy way to crater too. I mean, like you said, Grichuk's bat first, bat only. Laureano has been glove first, and his glove is starting to go. So I don't know. I'm not saying it's super lamentable that they didn't get one or the other of these guys. And I'm also not saying that it's required they get Bader or Duvall or Tommy Pham or Manuel I can't say it. I can't even let those words come out of my mouth.
Don't do it.
But I think that there's still room. And you texted me Duvall the Jaguars rallying cry.
Right.
I don't know what his plan is, and I know he's played some center field. I think the Red Sox kind of shoehorned him out there. I don't know that you'd want that in any meaningful fashion, but
36 years old. I don't know.
Yeah, smokes lefties or has in the past. Kevin Pillar, is he still looking for work? I don't remember if
he signed.
Oh, he did sign. Okay, I know he was talking about retiring, and then he said, "Nah, you know what? I can't let this."
It doesn't say that he signed, so maybe he didn't sign. I thought he had signed with the Angels, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Well, he ended the year with them last year, right?
Right. I thought maybe he
re-upped. So, and that'd be another option too.
According to MLB's website, Pillar is still available. I don't think he's as good as Bader.
Bader, but a minor.
Yeah, but I'd almost rather trade for somebody else at this point because he's 36. He's still able to go get the ball, but there were, I don't know, there have been signs last couple of years that he's taken as far as the offensive end goes. The two guys, there's three. They're mostly left fielders at this point. You've got Canna. He'd be okay.
Yep.
You've got Pham, who's still contributing. Probably the best player is Alex Verdugo. He doesn't exactly fit what they need as far as handedness, and also Verdugo has an issue from that. I mean, nothing has come up in recent years, but when he was a minor leaguer in the Dodgers, there was an incident with them that was very
Ugly.
disturbing that he was involved in. I don't want any part of that guy.
No, and honestly, I just feel like there's a lot of sizzle and not a lot of steak there.
Yeah, maybe he's there's you worry about Tommy Pham having an impact on. There's a lot of drama with Verdugo that doesn't equate with the kind of player that he is. So
it reminds me of like the idea of Colby Rasmus is better than the actual execution of Colby Rasmus back in the day, and not because Colby Rasmus had anything in that bag of issues, but I mean, just we see a player, we see what they're possibly capable of, we see what they do and think we can make them the best version of themselves, and then it's like, no, I don't think so.
Bader still makes a lot of sense because you can play him in center field, and if you're for 30 games a year, hopefully, or 50, if Buxton can't go the whole time, that's a guy you can put in center field and you're okay. But then again, maybe Deshaun Kersey is that guy. I do,
but he's left-handed, so that's the issue,
but he's got 0 splits, so he can hit left-handed pitching, or at least in the minors he could. So
theoretically, like he should, yeah,
right. So maybe,
and I like him. I mean, I like him quite a bit in it. So if it comes down to him or Hellman, you could turn that into a useful lefty-righty left field combo if you wanted to DH Trevor Larnach on a fairly full-time basis. Like there's ways to make it work. So it's not.
There's still room for a player here because you've got Larnach. You don't have a DH settled. First base is kind of up in the air. So you've got right field with
Wallner.
It isn't. What's that?
With Wallner?
With Wallner, and you're not necessarily comfortable with him playing 150 games against left-handed. So you've got at-bats on the corners, definitely in center. There's going to be anywhere from 30 to 50, hopefully no more than that, starts in center field.
And a manager who will use them.
Yes, and you got a first base situation. You got at-bats. You can still have – what I'm saying is you can have Kersey on the team, and you can bring in – or somebody else like that who's already there, Hellman, I guess. And you can bring in a free agent, I think, or make a trade. There's still – there are at-bats to be had. You want to have depth, and the Twins could use a little bit more. They don't have the kind of depth that they do in the bullpen in those other places necessarily.
I'm wondering if I'm remembering wrong, but Adam Duvall, if he played some first base too, I feel like, but maybe I'm remembering wrong, and now Baseball Reference won't let me load. Am I remembering that wrong, or does that make sense to you?
I think I remember Adam Duvall coming up as a third baseman, which is kind of funny. Yeah. Duvall.
Yep. So he's played a little bit of. He hasn't played first base since 2018 with Cincinnati, but it's not like the kind of thing that you would age out of as opposed to center. He didn't play any center last year with Atlanta and was shockingly worse than I even remembered, minus 1.4 Baseball Reference WAR. So
I worry about not having the steadying force of Carlos Santana at first base very much. I don't necessarily like going into the season with a million guys playing first base, which is kind of where the Twins are right now. I don't like that as far as
if you have a million, you have none.
Stability. Yeah, kind of like that. I'd rather have a full-time player there. I mean, Pete Alonso's available. I don't see them spending money on him, but
I don't like. I'm honestly cold on him, not because he's a bad player, but just I think that there's a Ryan Howard possibility there, where it's just like you sign the guy and then his demise comes quickly, or Rhys Hoskins. Now he's not coming off an injury like those guys, but he also has a skill set that may not age all that well. We're not going to get to Pat Hoberg and Austin Capobianco. Pat Hoberg, the deposed umpire Capobianco, the Yankees fan, banned. But I think we can touch on that in a subsequent episode because I think it's worth the time, but I also don't want to bleed over our allotted segment here of time. So, Dave, anything I missed? Anything you have any parting thoughts? Grichuk, Laureano, I think Bader is the way to go here, but if you can get Pilar or Duvall on a minor league deal, kind of like a Lucas Duda, Carlos Quentin, like the Twins have done in the past, where they just bring a veteran in to see what they have left, I don't hate it.
I would really like to see, and it's risky, I'd really like to see Deshaun Kersey get some run in spring training to see. And I hate to have it go down to spring training, but I'd like to give him a chance. I would. And then if it doesn't work, then bring somebody in later, make a trade later, which doesn't always work and doesn't always happen.
Well, I'm not opposed to any of that, and I'm sure they're still working on figuring out who's going to make the most sense. Well, hey, we're going to take a 23-hour break, and when we come back, I don't know, hopefully there's something else to talk about, but he's Dave Brown. I'm Brandon Warren, signing off, saying thank you so much. Make sure you check out that Keith Law episode. Follow Dave at Answer Dave Brown on Twitter. Answer Dave on the Skeets. And it's time to go. This has been Locked On Twins, and we'll see ya
tomorrow
night.
See ya.
See ya.